Hi, and welcome to the channel. If you're new, my name is Matt, and we are a family from Fridley, Minnesota. And on this channel, you'll find all kinds of RV related videos. We do campground reviews, we do a travel vlog, I'll do walk around tours of new RVs and campers at dealerships, and I also have a series called Is It Worth It to Rent Out Your RV? Basically, we own 2 travel trailers that we rent out through RV Share and Outdoorsy. And every month or so, I do a video where I share with you how it's going for us. I'll talk about the good and the bad, problems we're having with renters and or our rigs. I'll share with you what new gear we've bought, things that we're tweaking or changing to make the process smoother. And I do some Q&A, and I also put myself out there and talk about how much money we're making. First of all, I want to give you a little update from our last video. I had mentioned that we were flirting with the idea of getting a Class B or a Class C. I think we're not going to go down that road. The more I look into it and research it, there's just a lot more to worry about with a motorhome. You got more depreciation with the miles. It's just a much more complicated piece of equipment. Not only do you got the maintenance of the camper stuff, but then you got the vehicle stuff that goes along with it. You got a generator that you got to worry about. And the prices are just sky high on them right now. We could get top dollar for one of our travel trailers if we sold it, but for now, I think the hassle's not going to be worth it. We're just going to stick with our travel trailers. I also mentioned that we were looking at commercial insurance. Now, I'm not an expert in this area. If there's somebody out there that is, if you want to chime in the comments section and clarify or correct what I'm saying here, that would be great. But basically, my wife looked into this and she called a bunch of different places, and in our minds, we thought we could get a commercial policy, and then that policy would cover both rigs 24/7, whether we're using them or a renter's using them. Turns out that's not really the case. Basically, from what we learned, even if we get a commercial policy, somebody rents from us, they still have to get their own insurance rider during the rental period, either through their own company, or they can get a rider through our commercial policy, but they would actually have to pay extra on top of that. And these policies aren't really that cheap. We got a couple quotes, they're a couple $100 a month. So for now, I think we're just going to keep doing things as we've been doing. I'm renting through the platform, using the platform's insurance. We have done a couple off-platform rentals, and we got a couple on the books here for October. And again, we are contacting their insurance company. They get their own rider. They send it to us. We verify that the policy meets our standards, and then, so far that's worked. But commercial insurance, we're putting that on hold for now. All right, now I want to answer a question from a viewer on a previous video. They want to know what I stock in our tool bin and our fire starter kit. So here's a little clip I did on our last camping trip. So basically I keep our fire kit and our tool kit in these little Tupperware containers. Fire kit, basically everything you need to get a fire started. I have some kindling, lighter, have these little strike of fire, fire starter things, and some newspaper. I tend to use this every time I go camping. I'm actually surprised at how few renters actually tap into this kit. Maybe 1 in 5 actually use it. Might even get rid of it, I don't know. Here is our tool kit. Basically, here's an overview of what's in there. And I'll take everything out and show you piece by piece. Now, this is not something I'd recommend for your everyday RVer. If this RV was only used for personal use, I'd probably have more tools and probably nicer tools. These are just things that a renter might find handy when out on the road, and I wouldn't get too bent out of shape if some of these things got damaged or went missing. Okay, so first, this is our socket for our weight distribution system. This is a drill adapter for the scissor jacks. We got a couple screwdrivers, an adjustable wrench. The socket here is actually for our X-chocks, and then we have a grill brush and some miscellaneous zip ties. Have an extra hitch pin, and you got to have your duct tape or your Gorilla tape. Got a water flow meter, carabiner, and then this clothesline is actually handy in case you forget your dog leash. Propane gauge, got a couple bungee cords, and then this bin here is full of extra fuses, hitch pins, fuse puller, and then this is a gauge for our tire pressure monitor things. Oh, and then an old socket kit as well. So that is our kit. All right, now let's talk about gear for a minute. This is not something I bought, but a company called Suma sent this out to me to try out. Basically, this is a ceramic spray. It's made for cars. You put it on your paint or the windshield, and it's supposed to help protect those surfaces and make cleanup easy. I put it on my truck. It worked great. So I actually applied this to the front cap of my Grand Design. I'm thinking this could really help clean up the tree sap and the bugs and just make that process a lot easier and help protect it too. I'll let you know how it works as time goes on. Couple other things that I bought this month. I bought a power tester for my 7-pin connection on the truck. And the reason I bought this is, I had this happen a couple times where somebody comes out, they plug the camper into the truck and something's not working right. And I think the initial reaction of the renter is to think that it's your camper that's not working, you know, because, well, look, the bulb's not working or whatnot, where, you know, I do test it all the time. It's working. I had a situation last year where the brake lights weren't working on the camper, and the renter was very insistent that it was not his truck. And I'm trying to explain to him that it likely is your pin that's not working. And we kind of went back and forth a little bit. Ended up having to like disconnect his truck and plug my truck into it to show that, you know, it wasn't my camper, it was actually your truck that was having the issue. With this tester, we can easily plug that into a renter's truck and you know, get those issues figured out. I also got a cover for our power tongue jack. I had a cheap one last year and it just kind of fell apart. I got this nice one here. It's got little hooks for the chains and whatnot to keep everything off the ground. Works pretty nice. All these items I will list in our Amazon store. I'll have that link in our description. All right, as far as issues this last month, really no issues with renters. We've had some pretty good renters lately. We have had some things break on the RVs. It's been a bad month for awnings. Both rigs had awning issues. Our Mallard had a strut that broke. Turned out that wasn't that big of a deal. It was a really easy fix, and the part itself was only like $40 to $50. Now the Imagine had a window support arm break. This was a little more expensive of a part. It was $100, and I actually ended up buying two. It was completely broke on one end and the other side was showing some fatigue, so I went ahead and replaced them both. And it's hard to say why exactly this happened. I don't know if somebody was pulling down on the awning too hard, giving it too much of an angle, or just heavy rainfall. Not 100% sure what happened, but just to be safe, we replaced both of those. You know, minor little thing. There's a window support arm on our Mallard. The window on the top bunk has this little cheap support arm that broke. Again, the part wasn't that expensive. You know, to take it off, we did have to drill out the rivets and put new rivets in. We had to replace a propane line on the Mallard as well. Another thing that I've been having a lot of issues with is the tank sensors on our Grand Design has just been kicking my butt. We have two gray tanks on that rig, and all summer they've just been stuck at 1/3 and 2/3. And I've done two complete like tank cleaning processes. Like I did a combination of I think it was vinegar and baking soda, and then borax and pine sol. And you know, I've watched the videos, and it seemed like no matter what I did, those sensors would just not go back to zero. On our last trip, I did put like a half container of Dawn dish soap in the sink before we started our trip, and that worked for one of our sensors. One of our sensors is back down to zero, but that other sensor, I just cannot get it to clear out and clean up. Driving me crazy. But overall, I guess our issues have been pretty minor, and we've been able to deal with them. As far as tweaks or things we're doing different this month, not a whole lot, but there are a couple things. Number one is we're making sure our renters start their trip with a nice cold fridge. In the past, we would always turn it on, you know, maybe an hour before they came out, and you know, we never had any problems. But we did have a renter pick up early in the morning, and it was an extremely hot day, and they just were never able to get the fridge cold, and they were sending us messages. They weren't sure, we weren't sure if their fridge was broken, something wasn't working right. At the end of the day, it just turned out that the fridge just wasn't able to keep up with the hot temperatures because it just never started out cold. So now what we've been doing, I tend to keep the RV plugged into the house in between rentals. If we have a rental going out in the morning, I'll turn that fridge on the night before, so it's good to go the next day. You know, I've mentioned this in previous video, but we're being very strict on no same day turnarounds. We've had that happen a couple times. I think it's because there was a glitch in the reservation system that allowed it. But, you know, we had an RV come back one day and it was going out the same day. And that was the day we found out that the awning was broke. You know, the tanks needed to be emptied and the propane line needed to be replaced, like all the same day. And there just wasn't enough time to do all those things. Obviously, we got the tanks emptied, and I was able to put a new propane line in, but no more same day turnarounds. Another thing, a little tweak. Now we have 3-day minimums on both of our rigs. On our Grand Design Imagine, we've now upped that to a 4-night minimum. And that kind of leads me into the thumbnail. So in the thumbnail, I say what it takes to rent your RV. And obviously, you know, you need the right RV, you need the right equipment, and you need time and space and all that. I talk about those things in previous videos, but you also need the right mindset. You know, you need to have the right expectations to know things aren't going to always go right, and there's going to be problems and troubleshooting, and things are going to break. You need some perseverance, you need some grit, because if you are easily defeated, you know, this rental business is not going to be for you. You know, that being said, we try to get ourselves in the right mindset for this, but I gotta admit, you know, towards the end of August, we were in a mental slump. You know, we were blessed with a very busy year up to that point, but because of that, you know, it was starting to be a lot of extra work, and it got to the point where, you know, we were just looking at RV, and you would just see or think about all the things, all the work that went into, you know, getting it ready for the rental or getting it cleaned up for the next one, and all those cleanings and washings and trips to the dump station. It was starting to get old, and, you know, we were getting kind of tired. So a couple things in September that really helped us get back on track. Number one, we went camping. We took our Grand Design out on a really fun trip with some friends from church and just had a really great time. And it was so nice to get back to that feeling of, hey, this is our personal camper. You know, this isn't just a piece of property that we're using to make money. So that was very refreshing. The second thing we did, you know, even though when we were in this slump, we were actually talking about maybe do we end our season early? Do we just go down to one camper? You know, we wanted to simplify things a little bit. So we did that tweak of a 4-night minimum, but just on our big rig. Our small one we're keeping at 3 nights. You know, but we've already met one major goal with this RV rentals, and, you know, that was to pay off our Mallard. That happened, you know, this summer, and now we're accelerating our payments on our Grand Design. Hopefully we could have that paid off next summer even. But, you know, we went to a 4-night minimum. There's still a lot of demand out there, so I think we can afford to do that. And, you know, worst case scenario, it's not getting rented out every weekend. That's okay. I think we'll be okay to have a little breather now and again, and just, you know, if it puts us in a better mindset to be fresh with this business, so be it. All right, that is our updates for the last couple of months. Now we'll go ahead and I'll show you our spreadsheet, and I'll share with you how much money we've made up to this point of the year. And I'll also show you our calendar. Since the last update we did was in July, I'll show you August, September, and I'll even show you what it looks like for the rest of the year. Okay, starting out with August here, I'll show you how the calendar is laid out for us. All Imagine rentals I have color coded as orange. The Mallard is in blue. Anytime we take our rigs out for personal use, they're in green. And I'll also put the company that the rig is getting rented out with, renter's name, and then I'll put the dollar amount that we're bringing in as well. So it gives you kind of a nice snapshot of each month what's happening. So as you can see, August was pretty steady. Our rigs were out pretty much every weekend. Our Mallard was out 23 days total, and the Imagine 21 days. Going over to September here. Again, September, fairly busy. You know, this is Minnesota, so after Labor Day, the season starts to cool down quite a bit. But we still had a lot of rentals on the books here. Even with our Imagine being out, kind of a back-to-back owner trips down here, essentially 2 weekends in a row. But September, our Mallard was out 19 days, and our Imagine was out 9 days. Going over to October, And yeah, I mean, it's Minnesota. Things get kind of cool in the month of October. It's not uncommon to have snow up here. So any rentals on the books, in my opinion, is kind of a bonus for October. And October we had the Mallard out for 12 days, the Imagine out for 8 days. And part of the reason we only had 8 days for the Imagine, we did have one owner trip up here. And then, today is actually October 25th. I wanted to do this update in September, but we got kind of busy. Um, I ended the Grand Design today. I took it off the market today. There could have been a possibility of a last minute trip here, Halloween weekend, maybe into November a little bit. But, I have some time where I can take it and winterize it. And I just kind of wanted to get it put away. Our Mallard, we do have 3 more rentals the next 3 weekends. That is going to be out on the road. And then we're ending the season for the Mallard, that second weekend into November. Now, I do have both rigs set up with a possibility of doing a longer rental during the winter if there's somebody that wants to take it down south. Through Outdoorsy and RV Share, you can set up special exemptions through their calendar system, and I have it set up where you can only book it for a minimum of 2 weeks. I figure there are some logistics and things you have to do if a rig is going to leave the cold up here and go down south with de-winterizing it and then getting it winterized again. So if that's going to happen, I need to make it worth my while. 2-week minimum. We'll see if that happens this winter or not. But that's what our calendars look like. Let's go over and look at the numbers. First, I'll go over how I have the spreadsheet set up here. Column A is clearly the months of the year. Column B is money we brought in off platform, doing our own rentals. And then I have each RV in here twice. So Mallard with RV Share, with Outdoorsy, the Grand Design Imagine with RV Share, and then a column for Outdoorsy. What that does, it gives you a nice snapshot to see, what company in combination with what rig is bringing in the money. So column G here is gross income. That is all income that we took in after Outdoorsy and RV Share fees. Column H is payments and insurance. You can see that went down in August. That is because we paid off the Mallard this year. And then column I is expenses, and then J is net income. So all gross income, obviously take away payments, insurance, expenses, and that gives us net. So let's go back and look at August quick. August, Mallard RV Share brought in the bulk of the money that month, $1,330, $273 with Outdoorsy, and the Imagine brought in $607 with RV Share, $672 through Outdoorsy. So a pretty even split between the companies with the Grand Design. Our gross income for August is $2,882, and after payments and expenses, we are down to $2,405. September, again, RV Share with the Mallard brought in $1,234, one rental through Outdoorsy for $288, and the Imagine brought in $742 through RV Share and $312 through Outdoorsy. Our gross in September was $2,576. And our net was $2,099. Going into October, we had one rental off the books for $360, one rental with the Mallard through RV Share. And by the way, that is the Mallard that was off platform there. Mallard brought in $384 through Outdoorsy, Grand Design $405 through RV Share, and $312 with Outdoorsy. So you can see down here, here's our totals. The Mallard through RV Share was our biggest bulk of income through the year. Got to rent it out a lot more with RV Share than Outdoorsy with the Mallard. But then if you flip over to our Imagine, that got rented out more through Outdoorsy than it did RV Share. And I have no idea why that is. I don't have a good answer there. But year to date so far, our gross income was over $21,000. Now we did have $3,400 in payments and insurance, and $4,100 in expenses, which gives us a net income for the year so far of $14,291. And I'm pretty happy with that number. Our rough goal was $10,000 in net. So to be at 14 for the year, I'm pretty happy with that. So that's kind of our update towards the end of October here. I'll do one more of these maybe at the end of November into December, kind of give you a year summary and wrap up of how 2021 went for us. Otherwise, once again, thanks for watching, and we will see you next time.